So for today, we're gonna discuss agriculture and its impacts to the environment. So what is agriculture? So agriculture is the art and science of basically farming and raising land animals such as cows, pigs, chicken. So that is agriculture in general. So agriculture or farming practices lead to soil degradation. Now, sometimes, farming really helps with our soil conservation, but there are processes that also lead to soil degradation. So the following, we have three kinds of processes. We have the physical, chemical, and biological processes that lead to soil degradation. All right, so we're gonna discuss the following. So we have the wind and water erosion, we have compaction, and for chemical, we have toxification. We also have salinization, acidification, and for biological, we have declines in organic matter, in carbon, and in the activity and diversity of soil fauna. All right, so there are various types of soil erosion. So I've mentioned earlier that we have two types. We have the water erosion and the wind erosion. So first, we'll discuss the water erosion. So first kind of water erosion, we have the splash or raindrop. So that is due to the impact of falling raindrops on the soil surface, leading to the destruction of the crumb structure. So you will often see this when there is not so heavy rain, kanang ulan lang nga gamay, but then it will already form a type of erosion that would lead to the destruction of the crumb structure sa atong topsoil. Next is we have the rill. So a rill is a form of water erosion in which the erosion takes place through numerous narrow and straight channels called streamlets or headcuts. So it is the most common form of erosion, which you can observe during heavy rain. So usually when there is heavy rain, so naay mga streams nga ga-form. So these streams are caused by um, uneven nga soil areas. So those parts of the soil dito mag-form ang rill, and so ang water will pass through that streamlet. Alright? So as you can see here sa illustration, ana ang itsura sa rill. We also have what we call a gully. So it occurs during runoff of surface water, causing the removal of soil with drainage lines. So usually a gully forms after a rill. So gullies, when started once, will move by headward erosion or even by slumping of sidewalls until proper steps will be taken in order to stabilize the disturbance. So when we see a landslide, so that is a big gully. So that is caused by runoff of surface water. So usually, after a heavy rain, na ay rill nga mag-form and will develop to a gully. So next is we have desertification. So the definition of desertification is loss of more than 10% of the productivity of the soil. So when I say 10%, so if there is a 10% nga nawala sa productivity sa soil. So 10% lang ha, dili 50%, but only 10%. So that is very small, and you will already consider desertification with that productivity loss. So desertification is caused by numerous reasons. So we have the erosion, soil compaction, forest removal, overgrazing, salinization, climate change, depletion of water resources. So the most prone areas to desertification are arid and semi-arid lands. So arid meaning dry or barren. So as you can see here in the illustration on the side, we have wind erosion and water erosion as the most um, reasons why there is desertification. We also have what we call irrigation. So, before, wala pa irrigation, but then, since agriculture is now developing, it's a developing science, so we've already used irrigation. So, it boosted the productivity of our farmlands, but also it led to problems. So, when we say irrigation, irrigation is the artificially providing water to support agriculture. So, those regions which are not really good for agriculture, so because of irrigation, they are already used as farmlands. So, but then irrigation also caused problems. So there is what we call waterlogging. So waterlogging, so there is excess water in the root zone, thus suffocating the roots and will now be in an anaerobic condition. So waterlogging means there is over-irrigated soils. Now, waterlogging will cause nutrient deficiency or toxicities and will also lead to root death and reduced growth or death of the plant. We also have salinization. So, when there is irrigation, so there is a build-up of salts in the surface soil layer. So, this is caused by dissolved salts in water. So, um, a little review, we have the concentration of calcium. So, we consider soft water to be less than 40 ppm and hard water to be more than 100 ppm. Alright, so salinization inhibits production of 20% of all irrigated cropland. So it costs more than 11 billion per year. So that is the cost of salinization. Now, how do we prevent salinization? So it is easier and cheaper to prevent salinization than fix it. So uh, there is what we call water guzzling crops in sensitive areas. So you do not plant those crops in sensitive areas. We also make use of soft water, so irrigate with low salt water content on uh, the farmlands. All right, so some areas or some farmlands make use of rainwater because rainwater has little to no calcium content. So, daghan farmlands nga use og rainwater, so they actually store rainwater during the wet season and then mo na ilang ginagamit for irrigation. We also have what we call drip irrigation. So, it is a type of micro irrigation system and involves placing a tubing with emitters on the ground along the side of the plant. So, it will only drip water when there is a need for irrigation or a need for the plant to have hydration. So, it um, conserves water and also helps the plant to not have toxic um, outcomes with water logging. Now, we also have a development on fertilizers. So, um, even before, fertilizers were used to boost yields on our crops and farmlands, but it also caused a lot of problems. So we know that a fertilizer, it is a substance that contain essential nutrients like nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. Okay, so inorganic fertilizers are used nowadays so that it will be mined or synthetically manufactured. So these inorganic fertilizers contain NPK in different forms. All right. So we also have organic fertilizer. So it make use of the remains of waste organisms. So we have manure, we have crop residues, and fresh vegetation. We also make use of a compost. So it is produced when decomposers break down organic matter. All right, so I've discussed to you the fertilizer or the contents of the fertilizer. Now, Para asa gid di ay ang fertilizer. So what is the use of nitrogen, what is the use of potassium, and what is the use of phosphorus? So let's take a look at this video.
What do you think has happened to these poor plants? These plants have nutrient deficiencies. They have not been receiving enough of the micronutrients needed for growth. Humans can also suffer deficiency diseases in malnutrition. Watch this video to find out more. Where do plants get their food from? Remember, they are autotrophic, which means plants make their own food through the process of photosynthesis. You can learn more about photosynthesis in this video. In order to make all of the macromolecules, the plant needs to obtain some other elements from the soil. For example, nitrogen is needed to make protein. Plant A has not obtained enough nitrogen, which it should get by absorbing nitrate ions from the soil. As you know, nitrogen is needed to make protein, so without this element, the plant will have stunted growth. The older leaves will be yellow and sometimes shriveled. Take a look at poor plant B. This plant has a magnesium deficiency. As you can see, it is yellow. This is because magnesium is needed to make chlorophyll, the green pigment that absorbs light in chloroplasts. As this plant does not have enough chlorophyll, its growth will be limited as it will do less photosynthesis. Now let's look at plants C and D. They are also both suffering from nutrient deficiencies. Why don't you pause the video here and write down any differences you see between them? Plant C had a potassium deficiency. The older leaves are yellow, but the veins remain green. The plant is also not growing properly. Potassium is needed for growth and for the plant's immune system. Plant D has a phosphate deficiency. The older leaves are darker green and some have fallen off. Sometimes the veins become purple, and the plant's growth has also been stunted. This is because phosphorus is involved in energy transfer, so the whole plant won't grow correctly, including the roots. Nutrient availability is of crucial importance for farmers, as plants without all of the nutrients they need will grow slower and produce smaller yields like less fruit. Hydroponics is a new type of agriculture where plants are not grown in soil. Instead, their roots are suspended in water with nutrients. This way, the farmer has much more control over the minerals in the solution the plants grow in. In traditional farming, where crops are grown in soil, the farmer may use crop rotation, where they change the crop grown in a field every year or two as different crops have different nutrient requirements. They may also add fertilizers to the soil. These may be artificial fertilizers, which are called NPK, referring to the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium they contain. Natural fertilizers may include human or animal waste, like horse manure or slurry from cattle farms. The feces and urine contain many of the nutrients needed for growth. You can learn more about farming in this video. So in this video, you have learnt about which nutrients plants require and what happens to them if they do not receive enough. You have also heard about how and why these minerals impact farming.
If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Comment below if you have any questions. Why not check out our FewSchool app as well? Until next time.
Alright, so that is why the plants need nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. Now, we've already discussed the environmental effects of over-fertilizing. So we know that eutrophication is the over-enrichment of nutrients in natural water that causes excessive growth of plankton, and then it leads to oxygen depletion and hypoxia. Alright, so we've already discussed eutrophication and how it leads to the different dead zones that we already have here on Earth. So again, eutrophication. So there is a what we call an algal bloom, where the algae acts as um, a competition with the other organisms in our water resources or water areas. Now we also have overgrazing. So grazing is um, generally where farm animals graze on different lands. So overgrazing, so there is too many animals that eat too much of the plant cover. So it impedes plant regrowth. So when we say overgrazing, so nasobraan raog pakaon ang mga areas which dili na makatubo balik ang plants or grasses because there are too many animals nga ga-eat in the same area. So overgrazing actually causes it is the number one or the leading cause of soil degradation. So government subsidies provide few incentives to protect rangeland. So wala kaayoy laws that regulate grazing in our farmlands. So 70% of the world's rangeland is classified as degraded. So we may think nga sa kadaghan sa land area sa Earth nganuman nga mahutdan taog rangeland. It is because gamay ra daan ang atong rangeland. So gamay ra ang pwede mag-graze sa farm animals. And so when there is daghan na kaayong animals nagagraze, so there is no chance for regrowth. We also have forestry. So forestry impacts soil. So along with farming and ranching, forestry also has an effect on our soil. So there is what we call clear cutting. So clear cutting is the removal of all trees from an area all at once. So this leads to soil erosion, especially on steep slopes. So when we have here in the Philippines, we have a lot of issues on illegal logging. So that is one of the causes of mga baha, or we have flash floods. So that is one of the causes why naatay mga ingana nga disasters. It is because some do clear cutting. So the modern methods to remove fewer trees over long periods of time, so this helps. So this is one of the solutions to clear cutting. So it minimizes soil erosion. So in one area, dili tanan trees ang gina-cut. Now let's proceed to the soil quality. So the crust or the continents are made of lighter rock and thus literally float on material of high density. So we have the crust where all of the landforms are and water forms are. So we are basically floating on the mantle. So um, we are of lower density compared to the mantle. So that is why we are literally floating on this mantle. So there is what we call the Moho discontinuity. So this is what you call this. This is the region where the crust and the mantle meets. So the Earth's crust is composed of the following chemical elements. So For the whole earth, we have a majority of iron. So um, we have the liquid iron and the solid iron, inner and outer cores. We have the oxygen, and we have silicon and magnesium and all the other trace elements. But for the earth's crust, we have um, silicon, oxygen, aluminum, and iron, and other trace elements. Now, let's discuss the soil. So, a soil profile consists of horizons. So, what are horizons? So, they are similar to watersheds or airsheds. So, a soil horizon is a layer parallel to the soil surface whose physical, chemical, and biological characteristics differ from the layers above and beneath. All right, so there are a lot of horizons. So, I'm going to discuss only the following horizons. So these are the major horizons. So we have the O horizon. So this is the litter layer on the surface. So it is not even the plants, but the litter um, surface, litter layer. So this is where um, most of our crops are. So this is the O horizon. Now we have the topsoil or the A horizon. So these are inorganic and organic material most nutritive for plants. So as you can see on the illustration, so the A surface, this is where all the most of the nutrients are. We also have the subsoil. So the subsoil, this is where leaching is. So plant roots uh, stop here. So dissolved particles move down through E horizons to B. So this is where the minerals accumulate. Now we have the R, or the pure parental bedrock. All right. So um, the roots don't go here anymore because wala na ga-accumulate na minerals. Instead, this is a bedrock. Okay, so those are the major horizons. Now, the soil consists of mineral matter, organic matter, air, and water. So um, basically, soil is an ecosystem of its own. So it has dead and living microorganisms and decaying material. It also has bacteria, algae, earthworms, insects, mammals, amphibians, and reptiles. So because of that, soil on its own is an ecosystem. Now, to discuss soil quality, so soil quality is defined as the capacity of soil to function or the fitness for use. Now, this is a typical plant dry matter composition. So, this is relatively uh, no water or no H2O. So, these are the elements present in dry matter of a plant. Now, for plants to grow, so there is what we call three phases. So we have the deficiency, luxury, and toxicity. So in this graph, you have the plant response and the amount of nutrient present. So of course, when there is no zero to none, little to none nutrient present, so there is a deficiency, and so plant response is also low. But then, when you increase the nutrients present, so plant response goes up and goes to a peak. So that is what we call the luxury. But then, when there is too much of these nutrients found, so the plant response becomes toxic. So if nasubraan ra gani, nasubraan og green flags, So there is this toxicity that is occurring in the plant. So if nasubraan na siya o nutrients, so it becomes toxic. Now there are 12 classes of soil texture. So silty soils with medium-sized pores or loamy soils with mixtures of pore sizes are best for plant growth and crop agriculture. Alright, so this is how you classify um, the soil texture. So you should know how to classify this. Alright, so I'll be posting a video on um, how to do or how to get the type of soil texture. Alright, so there are several soil quality parameters that is being checked by our local government unit or the government in general. So we have DNR and different other government agencies that check soil quality. So for the physical, we have the soil texture, soil depth, and rooting. We also have infiltration and soil bulk density. We also have water holding capacity. So these are the physical soil quality parameters. So um, each has a purpose on why this parameter is being checked. We also have the chemical soil quality parameters. So we have the soil organic matter, or basically the OM. So it defines soil fertility and stability. We have pH, electrical conductivity, and extractable NPK. All of this um, take part in the soil quality. Then we also have the biologicals. We have microbial biomass of carbon and nitrogen. We also have the potentially mineralizable nitrogen, and we also have soil respiration. So all of this define the microbial activity and capacity of the soil. So why do we discuss soil? So soil is the key resource in crop production. So it supports the physical, chemical, and biological processes. It also regulates water flow such as infiltration, root zone storage, deep percolation, and runoff. It also acts as a buffer between inputs and environment. So basically, what we throw in the environment, so gina-absorb pa na siya sa soil. And so the soil becomes the buffer to which what we throw and what the environment absorbs. So it also functions as degrader or immobilizer of agricultural wastes, chemicals, and other pollutants. Soil also sequesters carbon from the atmosphere. So what are these soil conservation methods? So we have first, we've already the video I've shown you earlier already discussed this. So we have crop rotation. So crop rotation is alternating the crops grown on the field from one season or year to the next. So return nutrients to soil that are depleted by one crops from repeated use. So this makes different crops have different soil, nutrient, um, what you call this, nutrients that they take. So different crops, when you rotate different crops, so it allows other nutrients to um, to increase when there is crop rotation. So we also have contour farming. So contour farming is the plowing of furrows sideways across a hillside, perpendicular to its slope. So it prevents rills and gullies. We also have terracing. So we can see this in Banawe rice terraces. So it It makes use of level platforms and are cut into steep hillsides, sometimes with raised edges. So it is a staircase to contain water. So generally, terracing is used para dili na mag-run off ang tubig. So that is what most of the farmlands here in the Philippines use. So dili lang sa Banawe rice terraces, but I've also seen this sa Davao areas. So we also have intercropping, so planting different types of crops in alternating bands or other spatially mixed arrangements. So this increases ground cover. This also makes use of the nutrients. So again, different crops or plants require different amounts of nutrients. And so intercropping makes use of these nutrients. So walay ma sayang. We also have shelter belts or windbreaks. So rows of trees or other tall perennial plants that are planted along the edges of fields to slow the wind. So there is what we call wind erosion. So these shelter belts or windbreaks makes use of trees or even bushes so that ang wind dili makasulod sa atong farmlands, and so it reduces wind erosion. We also have reduced tillage. So furrows are cut in the soil, a seed is dropped in, and the furrow is closed. So usually in a farmland, di ba, ginatil nato nga all the way ato ginatil. But during reduced tillage, so kato lang kung asa nato i-plant, dito lang nato itil. So there are also farms that do not disturb the soil anymore. So that is what you call no-till farming. So butang lang nila diretso ang soil. I mean ang seeds for crops to grow. So dili na nila gabuslutan ang soil. We also have cover crops. So a cover crop of small grains, meadow, or hay is planted in the fall after harvest of row crops provides vegetative cover to reduce soil loss and hold nutrients, add organic matter to the soil, and sequester carbon. So these cover crops, so if gani ang soil dili na siya butangan og plants, so ang katong mga nutrients masayang lang. So katong mga nutrients mo reduce ra to siya into ma-leach lang to siya sa ilalom and ma-mineralize na siya. And so dili na magamit ang nutrients. And so these cover crops, so it will provide vegetative cover. So ang kato ding mga nutrients ma-hold to siya sa soil. And so after din magamit ning cover crops, it adds organic matter to the soil. And it also prevents erosion. So makontrol niya ang erosion. We also have genetically engineered plants. So I think we've already seen this kadaghan. So there are researches that try to genetically engineer plants so that there is increase in photosynthetic ability, and in turn will increase the plant growth. So this reduces the time required to identify desirable traits, and it allows a precise alteration of a plant's traits. So what are the different Philippine agencies related to soil and agriculture? So first is we have the Department of Agriculture, or the DA. Now the DA also has different organizations within that department. So we have the FPA, or the Fertilizer and Pesticide Authority. We also have the Bureau of Soils and Water Management. Now for irrigation, we have NIA, so that is National Irrigation Authority. And for DNR, we have the Department of Environmental and Natural Resources. So under that is the EMB. All right. We also have DAR, or the Department of Agrarian Reform. And we also have DOST, or Department of Science and Technology. We have NFA, or National Food Authority. And we also have DPWH. So all these agencies are related to soil and agriculture. So that's it for soil conservation. I hope you learned something today.